I helped judge a welding competition today, and it got me to thinking and remembering back when I was in welding school. So I was thinking, what kind of video would have helped me when I was in school? This is a down and dirty overview of the major arc welding processes: TIG, MIG, stick, flux core, dual shield flux core, with at least one down and dirty tip per process. Let's do it.
Three of the most commonly welded metals are carbon steel, stainless steel, and aluminum. So we'll start off with the TIG process, talking about all three of those. And we'll have a little discussion on short circuit MIG, also called short arc MIG. We'll show all different positions, and we'll also talk about some of the limitations of short arc MIG. We'll show some spray transfer MIG, and also some spool gun, which is also spray transfer for aluminum. And then pulse spray, which is a variation of spray transfer that does require special equipment, but is a great process. And then stick welding, also called shielded metal arc welding, or SMAW, or even arc welding by some old-timers. Then a quick discussion on self-shielded flux core. That's gasless flux core, and the one main tip that makes all the difference. And then, of course, dual shield flux core, also called gas-shielded flux core.
That's a preview. We're going to show all that and more. First up, we're going to talk about TIG welding. TIG welding is one of the most versatile welding processes that there is. You can jump from one metal to another very quickly without changing a spool of wire, changing gas, or anything like that. Usually, you're going to be using argon. Oftentimes, all you have to do is switch filler rod and you're welding a different metal. Sometimes you got to switch a couple of controls on the machine if you're going from DC to AC, but it's a very easy switch.
You could be welding carbon steel on DC, need to go to aluminum, one little switch, and then maybe set AC frequency and AC balance, and you're good to go for aluminum. That's what I mean by TIG being so versatile. TIG welding can be very precise and clean unless you weld on dirty metal. And one of the biggest culprits is hot rolled mill scale. Needs to be cleaned off for TIG welding. I've got a swath of it cleaned here. Things are going great until I get into that mill scale area. Now look at this. Now all of a sudden it's like welding in a bowl of cornflakes. It's no fun anymore. It doesn't look good. It's probably going to have porosity, and it's no fun. Same thing can happen if you're welding on both sides of a piece of 11 gauge carbon steel or thinner. The first side welds good, but the second side is all oxidized and it welds like crap, like this. Contrast that with freshly cleaned metal, no mill scale. Things flow along like they're supposed to. You can make a lot better looking weld, and it's a lot more enjoyable. Let's take a look at a bead on some dirty aluminum. That's not much fun either. You need to clean the aluminum. And if it's really heavily oxidized, a flap disc that's dedicated and designed for aluminum works best. Brand new clean aluminum sometimes only needs a simple wipe down with acetone. Dirty aluminum needs more than that. Back in the day, we were stuck with 60 Hertz, but newer inverter welders let us adjust the AC frequency and really pinpoint the arc. This is a corner joint on 1/8 inch thick aluminum with the AC frequency setting all the way to 300 Hertz. That is really pinpointing that arc. But the thing the manufacturers don't usually tell you is if you're going to use a really high AC frequency, you need a lot more amperage. So if you're using something like a 200 amp machine, you may not be able to use really high frequency settings for the thickness you're welding. Another application for TIG welding aluminum is on bike frames. This is a video I shot with my friend Mike Zancanato, a bike builder. He's using a Dynasty 280 along with a pedal pumping technique to get that stack of dimes look on his bike frames. With TIG welding, not only is having the metal clean important, but having good gas shielding is super important. This is a standard collet body that comes with most TIG torches. I rarely use them. Even with a 17 style TIG torch, I use a stubby gas lens almost exclusively. I get better gas coverage on both steel and aluminum. The thing that really sets this stubby gas lens kit apart is it comes with furic gas lenses with an O-ring groove. So if you want to use clear cups with O-rings, you can do that. If you want to switch to ceramic pink cups, you can do that. And so you can build on this kit one cup at a time. You can use a furic BBW, a furic 12 ceramic, or a Jazzy 10 without having to buy any new adapter kits. This is a simple fillet weld using ER70S6 filler wire, which is a great choice for carbon steel. There's not a lot of difference in ER70S2 and S6 on a simple fillet weld. There is a big difference on an open root joint like a pipe weld. But I think you can see that that number 7 gas lens did a great job of shielding with all those colors. This was 11 gauge hot rolled with the mill scale removed in the weld area, so it welded nice and clean. Now let's talk about TIG welding stainless steel. One of the main concerns with TIG welding stainless steel is maintaining the stainless properties, maintaining corrosion resistance. Good gas shielding is one of the main factors. Travel speed is another factor. And also getting your puddle established and getting moving quickly, because stainless steel is not very thermally conductive, and so it's very easy for heat to build up. If you take a long time to get your puddle established and get moving really slowly, heat can build up to the point where you just can't outrun it. When that happens, you can get a lot of discoloration, you can get excessive distortion, and you can also start to degrade the stainless properties and lose corrosion resistance. A very common task for TIG welding stainless steel is sanitary tubing for food service applications like dairy and juice and pharmaceutical and things like that. For those type applications, the inside diameter is the main thing. Getting a really good purge on the inside so that you don't have this nastiness here. You've got this well purged shiny stainless steel here that won't trap bacteria. And the way to get that purge, one easy way, is with a dual flow meter. I have seen guys try to put a Y off a single flow meter, but you don't know exactly what flow you're using, and it's kind of critical for sanitary stainless to know. Another metal that requires a really good argon purge on the backside is titanium. And if you ever have to take a weld test in the aerospace industry, you'll probably be using a fixture a lot like the one shown here. Whether you're testing on Inconel, Hastelloy, stainless steel, cobalt alloys, or titanium, you're going to need purge on the backside. And one word of caution is don't use too much purge gas. Doesn't take much on a fixture like this. If you set the purge gas too high, it'll be blowing and fighting against your cup gas. The goal for discoloration on titanium is usually silver all the way through and through, backside and front side. A common use for titanium these days is on lightweight bicycle frames. You must have good gas shielding on the front and on the backside, so the internal purge is every bit as important as gas shielding on the outside. If you don't have purge gas, you're going to have a brittle weld that is going to crack. Hey, if you're in welding school trying to learn how to TIG weld or trying to learn how to weld from home, I've got a course set up for you for beginners, starting at setting up the machine, then running beads, TIG welding aluminum, all the way through lap joints and more. It's at welderskills.com. Right now you can get 1 month access for only $1. Let's get back to welding. Well, let's talk about MIG welding now, also called gas metal arc welding. Fairly wide range of settings that'll work on a given metal thickness. This is 11 gauge hot rolled steel right here, and I've got the wire feed speed set down fairly low, so the travel speed is fairly low. The hash marks you see here are every 1/4 of an inch, just to give you an idea on how slow this is traveling. Well, you might want to go that slow and have that certain type of look sometimes, but other times you might want to get finished really quickly, in which case there's a wide range of what will work. I've set this thing up way hotter and I'm moving way faster. In fact, twice as fast. Now it's going to have a whole different look. Maybe that matters, maybe it doesn't. Sometimes the thing that matters is productivity, getting a job done. With short circuit MIG, you're able to weld uphill as long as you use a decent technique in the right settings. Generally speaking, you want to use a technique that kind of works the arc into the leading edge of the puddle, and your settings on voltage and wire feed will generally be a little bit lower than they will be for flat or horizontal. With short circuit MIG, you want to keep your stick out as short as possible. That's the distance between your contact tip and the arc. For me, it makes so much difference that I have gone to the trouble of trimming some off the nozzle so that my contact tip sticks out a little bit so that I can have a really short stick out. Overhead welding is no problem either with short circuit MIG. I'm using either a straight in or very slight push angle on this joint, but I've done pulling, I've done pushing, and I've tested them both, and I'm confident with either one. It doesn't make that big of a difference. You know I like to test things if you've been watching my videos at all, and I like to cut cross-section, polish, and etch to verify the penetration. That little MIG 180 I was just using comes with a spool gun, so up next we're going to talk about MIG welding with aluminum with a spool gun. One tip I would give anybody for that is start high on the wire feed speed. You'll go through a lot less tips that way. You can always trim it back. If you start too low on the wire feed speed, you're going to burn tips and it's going to be frustrating. So I'm going to set the machine here for 3/16 inch thick aluminum. That's as high as it went, but I'm actually welding 1/4 inch aluminum lap joint. Just experimenting to see how things go. You want to use a push angle with a spool gun on aluminum anytime you can. There are times when you can't and it's not the end of the world, but you're going to get a lot of soot if you don't push. Let's talk a little bit about spray transfer MIG on carbon steel. That requires a lot more current, a higher duty cycle, a higher argon percentage in your gas. It's much hotter than short circuit MIG. It's an industrial process. It's used in manufacturing and production. It is hotter and faster and kind of limited to flat horizontal and some overhead. Spray transfer is a much hotter arc with a whole different sound. Again, it's mostly used for flat and horizontal. Sometimes a 1G plate test is given using spray transfer with a backing strip. You typically use a push angle with spray MIG. Your stick out is usually a little bit longer, and oftentimes you'd be using 045 wire for this. We used 035 for this particular weld. There's also something called pulse spray MIG, and that's a variation of the spray transfer. That's kind of a more controlled arc for welding vertical, uphill, and overhead so that you can control the puddle. You do have to have a machine that's capable of spray transfer MIG. A typical gas would be 90 argon 10 CO2. It tends to do really well uphill, and it tends to really chew through mill scale really well. We've got both short circuit MIG and pulse spray MIG mini courses at welderskills. If you're in welding school trying to progress to the next step, these are going to help you a lot. They're going to be a big time saver. Right now, 1 month for only $1. Let's take a look at stick welding, also called shielded metal arc, SMAW. Old timers even call it just plain arc welding. A bread and butter rod, stick rod, here in the United States is the 7018. It's especially common for structural welding in the field, but it's also used a lot in pipe welding. A thing about 7018 electrodes is they're also referred to as low hydrogen electrodes, but they're only low hydrogen if they're kept in a rod oven or kept in the sealed container they came in. There's a limit at how long they can stay out in the atmosphere and still be considered low hydrogen. A very common welding test in the pipe welding industry is a 6G test. This is a 6G Schedule 80 with a 6010 root and a 7018 fill-in cap. Super common test, but 2 different rods are used on this test because the 6010 is designed for open root, both uphill and downhill depending on the procedure, and then the 7018 is primarily designed to go uphill. There are all kinds of other stick welding rods, but these are the main 2 ones that you need to learn in the USA anyway, 6010 and 7018. Other parts of the world like the UK, they use 6013 a lot, but their 6013 is a little bit different than what we use in the USA. Stick welding comes in super handy for out in the field, outdoor repairs. And a real handy stick rod is a 6011 because it can weld downhill as well as uphill, and it also runs well off most inverter machines like this small welder. In fact, for this weld, I was running off a 115 volt power off of drop cord, and I used a 332 6011, and it handled it no problem. Being able to make a quick repair weld off 115 volt power on a drop cord, weld a few inches of weld, get out of there without having to have a generator or a portable welder, can be a big deal. In fact, it can make the difference between making some money on a job and not making any money or losing money on a job. The 332 6011 is a super handy rod to have around, and for that reason, because you can run off inverters and you can run uphill or downhill, and it doesn't take much power. Generally, you can run off a 115 volt without popping the breaker. Now you'll notice I'm welding downhill here. I don't do that all that often, but a 6011 on 11 gauge steel like this little gate repair here, it penetrates, not a problem. And just to prove that, I did a little quick weld test after the fact on some 11 gauge and bent it over and whooped on it with a hammer and couldn't make it turn loose. I'm very confident that it held. Not only is a 332/60/11 really handy, but a 332/70/18 comes in clutch a lot of times. Sometimes the wall thickness just doesn't lend itself to using a 1/8. In this case, the wall thickness on the tube is less than 1/4 and the base plate is around 1/4. So a 332/70/18 at about 85 to 90 amps was just a ticket for this 5F weld test. We've got 34 videos right now on our stick welding course at welderskills. From padding beads with 6010 to overhead welding with 7018 all the way through to a 6G pipe test. Right now, what a deal. 1 month for $1. Let's talk about self-shielded flux core now, also called gasless flux core. It often gets a bad rap, and one of the biggest reasons for that is a lot of people just don't have the machine set up right. I mean, there are some crappy wires out there that you can get, but if you have the machine set right and you have a decent wire, things tend to go pretty well. You need knurled drive rollers that are sized right for the diameter wire you're using. You want to pay close attention to the tensioner knobs on your rollers as well as your spool of wire, but the main thing is you want to get your polarity right. It doesn't run on the same polarity as bare wire MIG. Instead, you need to set it to DCEN. Huge difference. Huge difference. You can see on the inside of this little Hobart machine, it even directs you to do that. DCEN for flux cored wire. Not gas shielded flux core, just regular flux core needs DCEN. Another thing to pay close attention to is the contact to work distance. 1/2 inch to 5/8 will do it for 035 wire. If you're using a lot larger wire, that distance is going to increase a lot. I've got the nozzle taken off here, and I've got a special flux core adapter, kind of a guard put on there so I can see everything and film everything a lot better. But they say that, oh, look at all that, you get all that spatter and everything with self-shielded flux core, it's trash wire, it's no good. Well, this is running pretty good. Contrast that to this that's run on the wrong polarity with all those BBs and spatter and everything. That's not running good. But just by switching over to the correct polarity recommended for self-shielded flux core, ran pretty good. I don't see a whole lot of spatter. Slag came off really easily. It wire brushed pretty clean. Not the best looking thing in the world, but it's definitely not a trash process. Dual shield flux core, now we're talking. Now this is awesome. This welds in all positions, welds over hot rolled mill scale really well. A great little tip that I learned from Matt Hayden, one of our instructors over at welderskills, is a cool all-around setting if you're using 045 wire on dual shield flux core. 25 volts, 250 inches a minute, very easy to remember. 25 and then just add a 0 to the 25. Works great for all positions. On 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch thick steel, probably even thicker. We're using 75-25 gas here with those settings listed. 25 volts, 250 inches a minute, 045 wire. A good hot puddle, very little spatter. We were shooting for a straight 90-degree gun angle here. It might be a little bit of a slight push, it might be a slight pull, but either one works. We've done lots of cut and etch testing on this to prove that. Slag comes off easy. Just a great process. And one of the really cool things about dual shield is that it works in all positions without having to manipulate the arc. You can do a little bit of manipulation, but you don't really need to. For an uphill T-joint fillet weld like this, just a slow, steady progression, keeping your gun angle consistent, your stick out consistent, makes for a nice looking weld. Just a reminder on how well those one-size-fits-all settings worked. We went right on to vertical, didn't change a thing, 25 volts, 250 inches a minute. Worked great. Along with over 700 videos, we've also got a mini course on dual shield flux core, all positions, fillet welds. Again, right now you can get access to that and more, the whole site, for only $1 for your first month. Easy to cancel. We're not trying to trick anybody. Just hit the link in the description.